welcome everybody. The board just met in executive session to consider matters regarding the appointment or employment of a particular person or persons and propose pending or current litigation. Please rise for the stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. School is now in the third week, and from everything I heard, both in my house and from my neighbors and from people who work here, is that we're off to a great start. And so I'd also like to recognize that while our students are starting a new school year, this board is also starting another year. And I wanted to acknowledge each of you for another year of service to this district through this enormous volunteer position each of you were elected to hold. So Trustee Ledmar, if I got this right, you're entering your 9th year of service. Yeah. Trustee Galati, you are entering your 8th year of service. Vice President Lisa Colasiopa is entering her 4th year of service, along with Trustee Maria Mosca, who's entering her 4th year of service. Trustee Lisa Cashman, you're on your 3rd year of service to this board. And Trustee Jim Svensson, this is very exciting. This is really your first official year on this board. So I guess I'm one more year than you guys, right? I'm starting my 5th year. So it's about, I think, 27 years of service here. That's a lot of volunteer hours from this slot. So Dr. Z, Lisa, and I have been busy planning our Board of Education retreat. As you all know, it's scheduled for Monday, October 7th. It's going to be what I call a romantic retreat at night. So we're hoping to start, I think actually we didn't even tell you this, at around 5:30. Hopefully that works for everyone. And I'm very excited to let you all know that we just secured a very, very special guest speaker, Dr. Laura Brader, who is a psychologist and founder of the Behavioral Health College Partnership at Northwell. But right now she is starring in an HBO documentary called One South. So I wanted to just let you know that if you wanted to get a glimpse of her, it's on Max, One South. And she's going to be presenting to us on the role of social media and phones on mental health, but it's going to go beyond the typical conversation and the typical ideas that we already, that, many of us are familiar with already. So I wanted to get you all excited about that. So let's get started with today's meeting. We're actually going to start with the district-wide safety plan public hearing. Interestingly, we did this last meeting, but we're going to do it again. As it's mentioned in the meeting, on July 31st, NICE had made additional amendments which were not included in the original list of proposed amendments. So that's why we're having a second hearing. Do you want to just elaborate on what they added?
Sure. Mr. Glennon is here too, so thank you for being here, Mr. Glennon, our Director of Security. They made some changes about notifications of drills, some changes to maps and things like that needed to go in the plan, some minutia changes. The changes to notification of drills, which our principals have already been doing, is just to help with the emotional burden of these drills, which can be traumatic in and of themselves, especially lockdown drills. So that was the main point of those changes.
Okay, great. So the notice of public hearing was published over 30 days ago. I now want to open up the floor for anybody who would like to come forward and give some comments. Anyone?
I'm just going to read.
Go ahead.
Did you mean public? Or,
well, it was public hearing, but I can close it, right? And then, yeah, you can do that in the second part, I think. All right, I'm going to close. We don't have any comments here. And now we can move to the approval of the district-wide safety and emergency plan, which is actually action 4. Is there a motion? Second? Okay. Now any questions or comments?
I was just going to reiterate the comment that I think and hope I made the last time, which is really just to compliment Jim and his staff on the incredible work they do with this plan. I think that we understand the change fully, so it's not really any different from the first time we approved it. But thank you, as always.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor? Thank you, trustees. Action 6, the approval of the claim, action 5, the approval of the minutes, August 27th, 2024. Any questions or comments or amendments? Hearing none, I will accept them as is. Action 6, the approval of the claims audit report for August 2024. Thank you. Questions, comments?
Another beauty. Thank you, Mr. Pappas and staff.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. We're down a district clerk today, so Carol is kind enough to help record the votes. Action 7 is our approval of the 24-25 district organizational chart. We approve this every year, and I know Dr. Z worked pretty diligently on it. It looked like a puzzle to me. Is there a motion? Okay, or a second? Questions, comments?
For your hard work on this.
I know it looks a little bit like a puzzle. We kind of worked off some bigger district organizational charts, Half Hollow Hills to be exact, just to reflect all of the different roles. We took individuals' names off, but just to show the flow of work. And we've been doing a lot of work with our principals and our whole administrative team about supervision and, you know, who reports to who and just clarifying all of that. So this is kind of a thought exercise too. Thank you.
So,
Yeah,
David.
that's right. Two things. Number one, I look at organizational charts a lot, actually. This is really, really well done. It's better than we've had before. There's a natural inclination to go very linear, and I like the fact that it's more of a scattergram that shows actually where people are. One position that I did want to ask about, and I mentioned this to you, it's just the middle school dean is a newer position. And I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how that's affected sort of functionality at this building.
Yeah, I think the dean position, we're going to the second year of that, has helped tremendously with the times in between classes. So our dean is in the cafeteria for every lunch period, in the halls at arrival and dismissal, and serves as another, in effect, administrative leader when those events are happening. And it really does help the flow of work between Dr. Brooke and Dr. O'Hara when things happen. So what tangible differences that I've seen is just a more efficient handling of any kind of behavioral issues, a more organized management of all of the functions of the building, from not being able to open your locker to how recess works to how we have recess games here. All those things have just unfolded with much more efficiency. When I need to speak to the principals and collect data on maybe something that happened, that is just a much easier process. The other thing I wanted to say is with our team talks that are being done to address issues of bullying or student-to-student relationships, or the SVOs, what the middle school calls the Shore Way now, Miss Eder Ardeen is a key part of that as well. So kind of like the proactive piece too, not just the reactive. So we've seen, especially after COVID, we wanted to do a lot of work with supervision and those looser areas, and that position's been tremendous help.
All right. Did you want to say something, Maria? Okay. All right. All in favor? Thank you. It's unanimous. And tonight is very exciting. We have new SGO reps, Genevieve and Caitlin. Do you both want to introduce yourselves first? Tell us a little bit about yourselves because we'll be spending a lot of time together.
For sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Caitlin Ho, and I'm serving as SGO president this year. And to give you a brief introduction, I'm actively involved in various leadership roles and clubs within the school. To list a few, I'm in Poetry Club, the Viking View, Mock Trial, and more. And I'm excited to represent North Shore students and collaborate with everyone this year to ensure that student voices are heard.
Hi, good evening. I'm Genevieve Hutton. I am one of the vice presidents, and I'm a junior in high school. I'm also very actively involved in a lot of clubs. I'm on the executive board of the Key Club. I'm also in Mock Trial. I'm on the debate team, and I'm very excited to be here and to be working with everyone.
Very exciting. And you probably don't know this, and I've said it a million times, but I was a former SGO president of North Shore High School, 1995 to 1996. So I'm very excited you are here. And back then, the president did not come to board meetings. There was a special SGO representative who came to board meetings. It was a whole different position. So each meeting that you're here, we want an update. So I know I saw you have some notes, so give it to us.
Oh, okay. So,
We like you already. That's what we like. I like to hear the concerns. All right, go ahead.
Wait,
Just point it right at your mouth, and
That's
it will
good.
it
Okay.
will come on.
Okay. So first, many students feel that the approval process for new clubs should take place before the school year actually starts, and this would allow them to recruit members and build excitement for new clubs without feeling discouraged or unsure if their efforts will be successful. And adjusting the timeline for club approvals could actually make a big difference in getting students more involved. So that's just a suggestion. And on a positive note, students have expressed how much they love the music wing, the newly designed front entrance, and the new library. And these spaces have truly enhanced our school experience. So, a big thank you to everyone involved in making those improvements possible. There's also a growing interest in increasing student activities, particularly social events. Many have mentioned wanting more dances, like a homecoming dance or a spring fling for younger grades. And this could be a great way to strengthen our school spirit in the future years. So, yeah, thank you. And those are the concerns for now.
Do you have anything you want to add, Genevieve?
No, it's just the start of the school year, so but we'll keep you updated with anything.
Okay, so here is my task for both of you. Okay, so you're going to come. You're going to tell us what's going on. We love that. We love the concerns, right? We love the compliments, but I want to make sure that because you represent all of the students, that you're bringing the concerns and compliments of all different stakeholders in the school. So all different grades, athletes, students, artists, really trying to go out of your way to talk to students that you would not normally talk to really get their insight, right? Because everyone has a different view of this place. And so we want to make sure that we hear from everybody through you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I'm deeply involved in both the theater community, the arts, and I would say a lot of the clubs at the high school. So I'll definitely reach out. And we're also going to ensure that we stay on top of all aspects of student life and work closely with all of the class officers to gather more feedback
Good.
and address any other concerns.
All right, good.
So,
I would love for you guys to go into the life skills class to speak to the L students, anyone that needs to be represented and needs their voice heard because it's not typically heard. I would love for you to bring that to us. Okay. All right, now you guys are allowed to leave. All
Andrea,
right.
can I
Thank
say
you.
something real quick? I know Jenna pretty well. Caitlin, I only know you through your roles on stage, and I believe you were, if I'm not mistaken, you were in the prom And were you in Inherit the Wind as well?
Yes.
So those were like some tough characters you played. So I'm glad to see like the other side of you. Because,
Yes, I'm not like my characters. No.
Okay.
That's good.
That's a compliment. Thank you.
Neither are we.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies. All right. Let's keep going. Dr. Z, that is tough to follow.
It
I'm
is
not
tough
gonna
to
lie.
follow.
You
It's a
guys, if
strong-
that's high, that's a strong start. Strong start.
Strong group.
Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Thank you, guys. So we've had a great start to the school year. We always say that we like to bring the joy at the beginning of the school year. So we had, for the third year in a row, since we've had in-person superintendent's conference days, we had our teacher band, the B-Day band, perform at Superintendent's Conference Day. And we tried to, in the spirit of AI and all things tech, we tried to deep fake the faculty by showing them a traditional presentation. It was a real presentation. And then we revealed at the end that there would be a performance. So it was a lot of fun. But also, these are serious issues that we're talking a lot about this year in our Viking Community Committee and also in our Technology Committee. Social media, smartphones, the impact on our students. The district is really focusing on the book, The Anxious Generation. Our trustees have received copies of the book, our full leadership team, and that'll be guiding, that book will be a guiding text for our Viking Community Committee. So I feel like this year at the start, Mr. Pappas, Dr. Smythe, and I have a lot of space in our third year now together to start pushing ahead on some of those initiatives that have taken a back seat as we've focused on the budget and cutting over $6 million over the last 2 years and stopping spending in several areas in a way that was truly unique than ever before. We've had amazing back to school nights. And one thing that was new this year is our food service director, with the guidance of Mr. Pappas, came to these back to school nights with our food service workers, and they served tastings to our parents. And it was amazing for them to see the work that they do, and that was a new addition this year. I really did feel none of these events and no district are perfect, but I did feel a lot of joy and had a great opportunity to speak to a lot of parents last night at the high school, the middle school 2 weeks ago, and elementary schools last week. And it was a lot of fun. And speaking of the joy, we're excited for our homecoming, which is much earlier this year. It is in 2 days, Saturday, September 21st. Weather looks fair right now. I don't want to be overly positive, but we have our carnival from 10 to 1 p.m. We have our elementary sports clinics starting at 10 as well. A middle school flag football game. Thank you, Mr. Freund, for helping us with that. And then as we get closer to the 2 o'clock game against Valley Stream South, we have our elementary fun run on the track. And we'll have our halftime alumni photo. We're very excited for that. As part of this, we've been having a new tradition where our varsity athletes actually walk through their elementary school that they went to. So we're doing that for the second year in a row tomorrow, right before the pep rally at the high school. So we'll be sure to get some great photos of that, and the students really enjoy that. We continue to work on solidifying a new centralized alumni effort. So we will keep you posted on that. That'll include new social media pages, and hopefully working with folks to help us coordinate the alumni effort in a more centralized way than ever before. In the past, we've had an alumni directory and somebody in charge of that, but we've never had somebody work with us to help us centralize the meeting of the alumni and have events and things like that. So we're looking forward to going in that direction. We've already had our first parent university. We had folks from Northwell present to parents on body image, and it was great. Thank you to Dr. Smythe for organizing these amazing events. And it was well attended. We had over 20 parents, which is a big number for us. On October 15th, we'll have a parent university on special education programs and procedures, and this is part of our action plan, which we'll be updating the board on later in the year. But to have more parent university events for special education, we hope to do the same for athletics as well, on topics such as injury prevention and also the recruiting process. We mentioned social media and our efforts on that. I did send a letter to the community that was written with our principals, Mr. Doherty and Mr. Kay, and Dr. Smythe, and we are excited to work on that with our community and see what we can do as a school to improve that situation and find that right balance between technology and wellness, and keeping school as a place of focus and interpersonal reaction. We have a senior college night next week, September 25th at 6:30. We had a mini college fair this week, which got a lot of traction. Talking to Mr. Doherty, Mr. Contreras, very excited about that. I wanted to mention two other items. One is safety. I know that this has been on the minds of all of our parents as we have heard about threats being made in places as close as Glen Cove and Locust Valley, but also Jericho, Kellenberg Memorial High School, and situations in neighboring towns. The superintendent group in Nassau County is talking a lot about this, and I can tell you also our internal team, with the leadership of Mr. Jim Glennon, has been doing a lot of work to solidify our plans. We're already doing drills, and we'll be communicating with parents more. We look to possibly have a forum where parents can come and talk to us about their questions as well. I also wanted to mention one thing, and it kind of relates to safety. It's something that I know our athletic advisory committee has talked about a lot about. I know Trustee Ludmar has brought this up as well, and it's very important, and that is spectator conduct with our homecoming coming up in 2 days. This is an issue that continues to be a challenge throughout Nassau County. At the county superintendent meeting yesterday, Pat Pizzarelli and some other officials from Section 8 Athletics actually pleaded with us to do more as superintendents and as school districts to keep student and parent behaviors on the sidelines in check. We've been pretty fortunate here at North Shore, but things do come up all over, and it might be at another school. So we're going to continue to talk about this in athletic advisory, maybe look at board policy this year, and just get more clarity. I'll be sending out messaging on that as well. What Mr. Pizzarelli said is, in 5 years, he's worried about high school sports continuing because officials don't want to do it anymore. And if you've noticed, our first two football games are at 11 a.m. because they need to stack games and start earlier to get the most out of the officials that are willing to do it. So this is a challenge that we continue to work on, and as a county, and we'll continue to do that here as well. This does explain, I'm sure parents at the middle school level have seen with Modify Sports, there might not be refs for a lot of games. I've seen it with my middle schooler in my district, and it's a countywide issue. So we'll continue to work on that as well, and work with our security teams and our sports supervisors to make sure that we're keeping things calm at our games. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Z. I know Central Administration has been very busy this week in particular, out many, many nights at meetings and back to school nights, and we all appreciate that. So let's now move to our regular business. We're going to start with a discussion of the district goals. As you all know, last meeting, we kind of brainstormed some district goals for the year, and our central administrators went back and put our ideas into a document. So this is our chance before we sort of finalize them to give our comments on their work. So I'll open it up to anybody who would like to start. I'm supposed to go last, but I'll go first this time. I'm just worried they're too ambitious. That's sort of my concern. So you have a lot there. It seems like, I know it's only 3 main goals, but it seems like there's a lot of bullet points. I would say I think there's some areas that maybe you can make it a little bit more general and less specific, because I don't want you to lock yourself in by one of those bullet points. So an example would be resume the regular policy review for 2000, 3000 series. Like I'm just a little concerned because I know the pace at which the policy committee moves. I just don't want you to overcommit because who knows what else we have a lot of other things that we have to look at. So that would be my main comment.
Can I respond on
Sure.
I thought years ago the policy manual essentially, it's really 10 sections, not 9, because it goes up to section 9,000, but 0000 is a section, so that's a 10th. so I thought, we used to go through 3 when I first started, and the reality is we didn't do a very thorough job. It was a race, and so I actually, I guess I'm both agreeing and disagreeing with President McCary. I agree that I don't want to do too much, and I like the idea of taking off a bite that is doable. But I do like the idea of having a discrete number that we're looking for, so we can set it as a goal. And I think we can go, or ye can go, because I'm not on the policy committee, somewhat quickly.
Been on it? Or?
I have been on the policy
You have,
committee.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you on the policy committee?
Yeah.
No.
Tried.
but,
Hot committee.
I'll just add, I also agree and disagree. I would say I was going to make the comment that I think we actually didn't finish the 1000s, so it might be more realistic to say let's finish the 1000s and tackle half to all of the 2000s.
And also, we did ask for this to be put in the goals last.
No, I know I
last
did
meeting.
ask that we pick up and try to.
And also, isn't it different? Like from 2,000 to 3,000 isn't the same number of policies as 3,000 to 4,000, right? I can't. It's not an equitable number, so
Dave does make a good point, though, that I did want to pick up on that because I've seen this when I've looked back at old agendas and sometimes videos that they would sometimes cover. There would be a dozen policies to approve in one night, and I think clearly they were not going through them with the level of fine-tooth comb that we do. We may be erring a little too far in the other direction, but that's just something to consider, that maybe our pace is deliberate for a reason. I do think we're trying to really come out with very high quality policies, but sometimes I think we have to check ourselves and not overthink them.
We
as
also
much.
had very difficult, I
We
gotta
had a
say, we
couple
had
of
very,
really
very
tough
difficult
ones, yeah.
policies.
Yeah, the model we had, and I'm not saying this is the good model to follow. It was just that much of the work was done beforehand. So it was sort of presented as, here's what is proposed as the change, and we just sort of said, good. Wait a minute, let's discuss. All right, good. And I don't know if that was thorough enough,
Yeah.
but it did lend itself toward speed and efficiency.
Who's doing the work beforehand, though, was
Dr.
the
Melnick.
unfortunate superintendent.
Dr.
Okay.
Melnick.
Okay. Adding another thing to Chris's plate. All
Now,
right.
Betty and I have talked about that is how Dr. Melnick would do it. He would kind of rewrite them and then go in with, like Dave said, what do you think? So that is an approach we can take too, where I do think that would make it more efficient.
I do want to point out, I brought up that comment about the policy, not so much about that bullet point, but just the general idea that I don't want you to cement yourself into some specificity that you're later going to regret with all of it.
I originally had 2,000 to 4,000, and then Betty had a talking to with me. If she's watching, she remembers. And so I went in and I changed it to 3,000. But I hear you.
3 is certainly too ambitious, and I'm saying what I don't. I think that was a little fast back then. So
Yeah, I think there's a middle ground, and I would just say that yes, also because we've taken quite a number of policies out of turn, it looks like we accomplished less than we did. So
That's true.
I think, and that has to, it was necessary. That's going to
Correct.
happen. So maybe I don't know if we can come up with some magic language that just says,
You all can enjoy that without my presence. All right, anybody else?
So I had a bunch of thoughts, and I wanted to share one. I didn't realize you were going to mention that, but it sort of dovetails into one I wanted to talk about, which is, so we did a very thorough special ed review last year, and now we have the follow-up bulleted. But in terms of what you're saying, Dr. McCary, I don't know that we will give it quite the same amount of time as we did last year, or is that the plan? If you could tell me a little more about what you're thinking for that.
Yeah, so I think the way we were thinking about this was in terms of program reviews. We usually try to have two different areas. So we thought of it as special ed almost as like a part 2, a follow-up to the work we've done in another discussion, and then math and science, really more secondary math and science. The other thing is that we are having this tri-state consortium review in March. So, I mean, that is a review also. That is a way to look at it. And the other thing is too, we have it as a topic on the board meeting dates, the special ed review. So it could just be a topic. It doesn't necessarily have to be a goal either. But we did want to close the loop on the progress we've made thus far.
I also, on that note, I feel like the technology, hugely important, and many trustees mentioned it. But I wonder if that, just in terms of looking at workload, if that could be teed up as a topic for a meeting that could then potentially, so we sort of set our groundwork this year as a presentation and then build off that to potentially next year have a full study. So we sort of like get us to the point of how we're using technology, how are other people, set it up, tee it up to some degree in the form of a presentation rather than, the entire university and K through 12 world is thinking about AI. I'm not sure we can tackle that in one year by itself. So breaking that up is an option. If Andrea is concerned about, which I think is fair. I guess you want me to keep going, Andrea, as long as I'm here. So yes to the tri-state, yes to technology. I really, really think it's important that we do keep our focus on the authentic interdisciplinary performance-based learning and assessment. I think those are some of the things that distinguish us as a district, and I think we have looked at them indirectly so many times over the years through SVOs, through the North Shore Journey, through the way these principles are embedded in all of our presentations, and of course the good work that Dr. Smythe has done in terms of performance-based learning and assessment. But I like the idea of that being highlighted. I wasn't sure what, just in terms of the wording, what facilitation of associated learning experiences means.
Field trips would be a good example of that. Any kind of learning experience that's designed around a performance-based assessment. It could be field trips. It could be some kind of service project. I think we were thinking about things that do get students outside of the school, that do make for more experiential learning.
So maybe for me, just to make it, I obviously, for me being up here, I love those things. It might be clear for us and maybe for the public if we just got rid of the words facilitation of, and the planning of associated, or even the planning and facilitation of performance-based learning and assessment and associated learning experiences. Potentially. I had a kind of a larger thought that I wanted to share, if I could, and I wrote out my thoughts because I want to make sure I kind of organized them in a way that was helpful. So we didn't bring this up in our previous discussion, but I attended last night's back to school night at the high school, and I really do think there's a pressing, timely need to follow up on the recommendations of the 2021-2022 review of the International Baccalaureate and the Advanced Placement programs. Faculty were incredibly impressive last night, as always. The passion for the subject matter, their passion for our students, for learning, the creative, unique pedagogical approaches I just saw in every class from every teacher. It was really inspiring. I love back to school night just like you, Dr. C. And I was really proud to see the caliber of the teachers that we have in that building. At the same time, in almost every class and in the hallways, I kept hearing rumors, confusion, and questions about AP and IB. One teacher ruminated there might not be a future for our dual track programs. One parent said they heard IB might be on the chopping block and wanted to know what that would mean for their child who's just starting a 2-year IB class, and the teacher didn't have an answer. I actually went up and said, look, I never do this, but I'm a trustee, and it's been said on the dais that we don't take away what students have started. And so once they're on the track, we will see it through for those kids. And that was reassuring, but I think there's a lot of confusion out there that teacher couldn't answer that question. So I think there's a disconnect between maybe what we're doing and what students and parents are hearing. And I worry that we're not necessarily giving clear organizational direction, which allows for these anecdotal perspectives, the hot takes, the rumors to kind of fill the void. And it really directly affects student experience in their final years of that North Shore journey. That 21-22 review was very data-driven, comprehensive. I thought it was one of the best reports I'd seen in my time up here, which is, Andrea mentioned, has been long. There were the key takeaways that I got from it were that colleges view both programs equally in terms of their intrinsic academic value, college admissions rigor, the ability to obtain credit for test scores, potential to place out of requirements or entry level courses. That the vast majority of the IB program cost was front loaded, and the cost of running both programs now is really a mid 5-digit number, something like 40, I think it was $45,000, excluding the test fees. And it was important that there was really no evidence that we could save a lot of money by getting rid of one or the other. So cost is not necessarily a factor in the path that we take. It also was helpful that a lot of classes had very small enrollments, which sort of myth busted the idea that we're running tons of tiny little sections all over the place. That said, of course, there were scheduling complexities. And more than that, as has been raised on this board, and I think rightly so, deep questions of whether the co-seating the multiple curricula, AP, IB, and at times Regents, that is also a kind of a third master they have to answer to in those classes, whether that's really giving our students the best experience. So after all that, we decided, as recommended by the administration and supported by the board, to continue offering both programs while looking for opportunities to streamline course offerings to enhance efficiency and student experience. I think want to be clear that I am not asking at this point for another review like that. That would be really superfluous. There was a great review, and that would just be a waste of time and energy. But I think what would be valuable to our students and families would be following up on the recommendations of the previous review, ensuring the administration remains committed to that plan of action, and understanding how we can better proliferate this message throughout the organization, including building leadership, faculty, and counseling. So it reaches students that what we decided here is the right direction, in consultation with every stakeholder, of course, is something that filters down to student experience. And there isn't this void that's created that I think is filled by chatter. And I think that's probably all I need to say about it. Other than just one more point, for me, my kids are through all of this. So their course load is set on their way to be high school graduates. But we also know that our biggest classes in the school right now, I think, are in 7, 8, and 9. Those are the largest enrollments. They're all being teed up to go right into this program. And I think it's important that we're on the same page and that we get everyone understanding what we're doing as an organization here for those kids and beyond. So I guess I would like to, in the way that I thought, special ed, I didn't think of it before because you didn't mention it, but the way you're talking about special ed potentially being more of a follow-up.
Here's where we're at.
That this could be sort of here's where it's at. And then once we did that, finding out also about how we ensure, for example, that the benefits that were shown by the data in that study are explained to kids who are making choices about their course load. Because aside from all the rest of the stuff, there's also the reality that, a few years ago, we had about 18 to 22 kids who were getting diplomas in this. And now we have a very, very small number. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's small. And I don't think that's just, personally, I don't think that's just because it's not right for the kids. I think that's because we're not necessarily going through the steps throughout the organization of understanding what the value is that we think it has and conveying that necessarily thoroughly. So that's something I'd like us to really see this year do.
Thank you. So I know, Chris, you and Carol have worked to incorporate some changes in how IB is delivered in terms of scheduling and how the courses run, right?
Yeah, no, I'll just mention quickly. I do think the reason we're seeing the number go down is primarily because of the wonkiness of the scheduling. But we will, we can present on that. We can certainly speak more to that. I do think there's also a history of the way IB was implemented in the North Shore School District in terms of not doing a middle years program, not doing a PYP program. The debate about the program that started at the very start when it was implemented 10 years ago. So I do think there are other factors there that, we want to work around as well. So, we will look into that. I think we're interested in, there has been no change. Nobody has said that, we're canceling one program and the other. I think because of the budget discussions and what we've talked about budgetarily, people have speculated on that. But I do think what we are primarily looking at is how we can maybe modify some of the offerings. We're looking at all the offerings so that it's just a smoother pathway for students who want to get the IB diploma. So we are doing some internal work on that right now.
Thank
So
you.
that'll be good, and that'll be helpful. I just want to make sure that the one point that I do think is important is also highlighted, which is the delivery of information about its benefits to our students. I think is also an area that needs some attention.
All right, thank you. Any other comments on the goals? So you first, Maria.
Actually, I have some similar comments to Dave, so I really thank him for actually setting the stage, because I was also at back to school night and last night, and it was incredibly exciting. I really wanted to talk about that for a minute as well, and then some other stuff came up that I want to address. But and I have just a few notes and then more riffing, as I often do. So I did want to say also, back to school night was so exciting. It was, especially, I mean, for me as a first timer in the high school, it was very uplifting. It was very inspiring. Even considering that, we were trying to negotiate moving from one end of the school to the other and experiencing the real whirlwind of what our kids go through in 4 minutes between classes. But it was also exciting. I discovered a shortcut at one point, so that was cool. And I came at this my comments about IB from a slightly different perspective, at least initially. We encountered teacher after teacher who spoke, I think, similar to Dave's experience, with pride about their long careers at North Shore, and still sounded full of excitement about, from their first days of teaching and the great hope and promise that they see now in all of our students. It was just amazing. Needless to say, it was made us proud and very grateful all over again to be part of this district. It was also a great reminder of the importance of the service we trustees perform in collaboration with you, Dr. Z, and your leadership team to oversee and support our faculty and students both fiscally and in our policy making. So that was just sort of my long-winded intro. In this spirit, though, I too want to urge clear and consistent messaging about the decisions and policies we make, specifically in this instance about the dual tracks that we offer for earning potential college credits, namely AP and the IB diploma program. My specific reminder about the need for this also came because I heard at least 2, and I think maybe even 3 of my daughter's core academic class teachers actually proudly note that their curricula strive to prepare students for their respective IB level subject area work. And I was very happy to hear that. But then in subsequent conversations in between, during the 4 minutes and, standing around later with some people, I was surprised, and particularly with, interestingly, parents of juniors and seniors. I heard reports of some teachers who expressed uncertainty about survival of the IB program, sometimes just by implication and other times overtly. So for me, that it put a little bit of a damper. I was like, well, gosh, but if that's happening at the upper levels, but the at least the 9th grade teachers are still really supporting preparing kids for that option, I realized that there was a disconnect. So it was the reason that I wanted to bring it up, because, full disclosure, I personally do think it's a great, IB is a great program. I know my daughter's going to be taking AP and IB classes, and many of her cohort friends are on the same tracks. And are excited about the possibilities. So getting mixed signals from either counselors or students or faculty is definitely challenging, and something I hope we can be sure that doesn't happen. I wanted to also just go back over a couple of the specifics that are on the sheet from the last talk and how they played out here. I wanted to just a simple point about the technology work. I underlined for myself the word continue because I think it's important to recognize, whether we like it or not, that this work is going to be continuous for a very long time. And I am looking forward to the presentation that we do have, I think, coming up this year from the tech committee, from their work. But that idea, Dave, I'm sorry, I've lost track of it, but to be teeing it up, I think is a good idea. Although I also hopeful that we can. I'm happy to see that Dr. Z mentions beginning to implement strategies to balance the role of technology, because I think that unfortunately we are already well behind the curve on this, and the sooner we get something out there, the better. I just had a question on the language that you asked about as well, Dave, about the associated learning experience. I just wanted to ask, would you put Regeneron and NHD in that category as well? Is that is that?
Yeah, I think so. Any kind of authentic situation where students have to present, defend, perform, absolutely.
Okay, great. No, that was that. I liked that it was there, and I liked the suggestion of simplifying the language. A small point on the fourth bullet there about the review areas. I wondered if, and I think maybe it actually ends up being perfect the way it is, since special ed is more of a follow up, but math and science sounds pretty big, almost like it's two, just that, it's not really math and science, it's math and science, that could be your two bullets as well. So again, just my 2 cents there. And I did have a note about the policy, but we already covered that. And I couldn't agree more. I'm really happy to see the way you phrased the concerns that we all expressed about planning for the fiscal cliff. Feels good and really important, and thank you for that. And there was one other thing. Oh yes, I loved the under goal 3, the fourth bullet, to create a digital documentary of the North Shore schools. I know we did talk about it based on the concept of what makes us us, and I think we spoke about it in terms of the transition to college as well. And that was my last point, was to sort of tie that back to this question about how we communicate the AP and IB diploma options to our students, and tout that we have these available, because it is what sets us apart. One of the things that sets us apart, that makes us, us, and in a very impressive way. So, thank you.
Just wanted to say one quick thing about the digital documentary concept for our high school profile, because I know it actually came up in the special ed discussion. It was a great, just like unintended thought that came from you. So I wanted to let you know where we are with that. We had to get the high school profile out very quickly as the school year started, because applications are going out already. So, but Mr. Doherty and I are already working on this concept of a narrative first, that we could then base more of an electronic piece on. So Mr. Doherty's fully on board, and we'll of course work with Dr. Smythe, Mr. Contreras, and we'd love to involve faculty and staff. 2, folks like students like Caitlin would be a great part of that team. So we want to get a lot of involvement in that.
Yes, there was one last thing I forgot. The town hall meetings also sounded like a wonderful idea. And specifically, I was thinking, because when we talked about how beautifully you presented, you and Mr. Pappas presented the budget last year, and how you started very early. And I think, though we're not necessarily starting that early again this year, based on the meeting topics, it feels to me like this idea of town hall meetings, even if it's not public town hall meetings so much as the kind of informational videos that you've put out in the past as well. It seemed to me that this is a great opportunity to present, like, sort of to give people the lay of the land in a way that is repeatable, easily referred to as time goes on. 'Cause as we build towards the 27, 28, I'm sort of seeing these next 3 years as a whole, as a single process. And we constantly, of course, have new people coming into the community. We want to keep them educated, and the people even who are here, including us, sometimes these things bear repeating. So I'm just thinking that those meetings seem not just about hearing concerns, but great opportunities for us to do sort of public education on some of these larger issues that we can't really ignore. It might not be germane to our everyday operation, but are certainly germane to how we plan for the future.
Okay, well, thank you for putting this together, Dr. Z. And I agree with my fellow trustees so far. They've had some great comments. I think that my only concern here is, how do you report some of this great work that you're doing back to us? And like, even, you just gave us this update on the digital documentary, which I love, but obviously you can't, at every meeting, you can't give us an update on each thing. That would be, that would be insane. But is there a way, maybe mid-year and end of year, to update us on the goals and update us on your progress? Because I know, you're doing so much, and I love to hear about, all the great work you're doing. So I don't know if there's a way to somehow incorporate, like, reporting progress to us. With goal 1, I really agree with Trustee Ludmar about the authentic interdisciplinary and performance-based learning. I was also curious about the associated learning experiences, because I actually wrote down field trips on in my notebook, and I think they are so important. And we live so close to New York City, and we have so many museums and so much history and culture, and even right here. I mean, the former mayor of Seacliff gives tours of Sagamore Hill. And I just think, like, it's right around the corner, and we have this opportunity for our youngest students. But then I do see such a drop off as the kids get older, right? In middle school and high school, they're just not going on as many field trips. And when they're learning about Teddy Roosevelt or about the Revolutionary War, Long Island played such a huge role in the Revolutionary War. I just feel like there is so much opportunity to take them out for that experiential learning. I mean, even just going to the library is exciting to me anyway. But and these are easy kind of things, and maybe, I'm sure the former mayor of Seacliff would not charge us, so it would be, these are kind of low cost options, are what I'm thinking about. Right. And like, even, there's public transportation to New York City, and I don't know all the logistics, but I just love the idea of, getting them out. And then what was that? The only other comment I wanted to make was just even about, goal 3, I love the community outreach and the continuation of that. I know I skipped over goal 2. I just think goal 2 speaks for itself, and it's, exactly what we should be doing. But just the structure, creating structure for students to share their perspectives. And we had these 2 great students just give us, so in 5 minutes, they gave us so much great feedback. So, I think those are just so important to listening to students, and who knew they want more dances? I mean, let me think. If I'm missing anything. But if I might jump back in if I find something I forgot. Thank you.
So thank you. This is, Dr. McCarty started with ambitious, and that was the number one thing that I wrote too. This is a great document which encapsulates a lot of what we need and want to do. I really appreciate the comments of previous trustees. I sort of had a similar ideas, but they came, some of the sort of approach seemed a little bit different in the way that I synchronized it in my brain, particularly with respect to goal one. I agree with the comments that have already been made. I think most of and with respect to goal two also, and some of this we'll talk about in old business too, with respect to our strategies as well. But, and I'm on the policy committee. This seems very ambitious to me.
At least with us as members.
I mean, I'm on year 3 of the committee, and I don't think we've gotten through one complete section in 2 years. So to try and do this seems, I'm in. I can meet. I like having specific goals, and actually, I didn't think of it, but Vice President Colasiopo has I think we could hold ourselves accountable to a midpoint review to sort of say, like, how are we doing and what is realistic, and maybe recalibrate sort of halfway through the year and say, all right, well, maybe we can get through one as opposed to 2 sections. For me, goal 3 is where, I have for certain communicated that what I see as an importance of continuing our community engagement. So this to me is a really important goal. A lot of how it's articulated to me seems like strategies as opposed to goals. And for example, like what makes us documentary, even how we talked about it in the context of this conversation this evening, and how you've given us that update about what Dan Doherty and you are doing, to more crystallize those ideas and be able to articulate to the community. And then the video becomes the execution of that. So for me, it's more what makes us us. And, we're talking about AB and IP. And from what I understand about it and how it's been explained to me, that also seemed that being able to offer kids tracks that speak to whether they want to deep dive, whether they want to use a different approach that AP and offers versus IB, that to me seems like also a differentiator in what makes us us. So articulating and sort of crystallizing and being able to have the sure way, something that we can then communicate throughout that beautiful org chart that you created, feels like a worthwhile goal, whether it becomes a digital documentary or not. So I hope I'm making my point of like the strategy versus the tactic and with that particular bullet. And I think that sort of, I see the same thing with employees. I mean, I also have said before, like, I really feel like that's human capital is something that we want to continue to, foster our relationships, make sure people, our retention is super solid. And to me, the idea of a town hall meeting is a tactic, but the goal is different. The goal is to create this sort of opportunity for a better communication strategy, and then town hall is one way. So I just want to kind of throw out the pushback of just, and also this meets sort of Andrea's original point, which is it doesn't tie us into one particular thing, right? It's more just this overarching kind of goal. And that I think is a worthwhile sort of umbrella to have.
We want to give you freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you that's sort of where I'm going with this. So thanks for that crystallization. And I agree, like when we have priorities, they get communicated. I was also at the high school last night. I can't tell you, I want to congratulate how many times I heard about the math center and the reading center. I think I must have heard about it in every classroom, if not every. I left knowing exactly which periods they're open, how it's always available. And I was so impressed. And we actually stopped into the library to talk to them and see it. And so I feel like when we have a priority, it does get to come across. And we're sort of, to Dave's point, there's this really unique thing that we have selected to offer. So, I think there's opportunities there, communication style wise. Yeah, those are my notes.
Thank you. Trustee Galati.
Thank you very much for the job you did in putting this together. I think the document is well done. It is ambitious, and I actually, you know, I'm obviously not on the spot, would like for you to maybe go back and give us some of your priorities in terms of what you think you would prefer to focus on within the particular categories. I think that would be helpful to all of us. I, in terms of, I just want to react to a couple of comments. When I had suggested the math science review, I understand what Trustee Mosca is saying about it being sort of a large piece. But what I envisioned when I had proposed it was, I really think as we move forward, it's more and more important to look at integration of programs. And years ago, we tried to do this, and there were certain limitations in terms of uniting the two. I think we have more flexibility right now in terms of being able to have both programs feed off of one another, particularly in the physical sciences, because from my experience, the difficulty that most of our students had was really the piece of putting the math to the problems. Our students, if you were to give them a straightforward algebra problem or a geometry problem, they were great. But from my experience, there was a problem with transference. And when you had to have them apply that to a practical situation, particularly in a physical science, they kind of fell apart. They got it eventually, but it took a lot of work. But I really think when I thought about this, that was really what was in the back of my mind, to see where we are and where can we go. So, and again, I don't want to make more work for people. I don't want an undue amount of work, but I think at this particular juncture, it's probably important to try and step back and look at that, if we can. I didn't think about the follow-up on the APIB, but I'm glad Trustee Ludmore brought that up, because I do also think that's important. My take home from the review that we had a few years back is very different than Trustee Ludmore's, but that's okay. And that's why I think it's important for us to talk about it. So if we could put that in at some point, I think that would be very useful to all of us. And other
And
than
put that in, just to clarify, put that in not as a goal, but maybe
no,
as
as a topic.
topic. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't want it as a goal. No, certainly as a topic. Okay, but other than that, I think you did a nice job putting everything together. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Thank you. And thank you, Chris. I feel like I'm new to this, so this part of it, but not new to the education business. And I feel like Chris and the team here did a really good job of crystallizing the list of goals that came from the table here. And I don't see personally, I don't see a 1 year goal here. This is a 3-year plan. Like, we have to prioritize what's most important to us in order for them to be successful with this much. And we called it ambitious a number of times. And then, with all due respect, we added another one to it. And whether we call it a task or a goal, whatever we call it, Dr. Z is incredibly conscientious, and it becomes every one of these is a job and something to do for the 3 people up here and many others. And it's incredibly ambitious, and it's way more than 1 year's work. And I feel like personally that we're setting the district and the administration up for failure almost to be able to not be able to accomplish all this. And I think we really have, especially with goal 2, to me, not that academics and curriculum isn't important, but goal 2, our fiscal issues that we have just got through a little, have a little reprieve, and then we have more, is really the number one priority. And it took months for this team up here to really handle that last year. And it consumed them. And when that's consuming, all these other things fall aside. They have to. So I feel like the board really needs to look at this and say, what are the priorities? Or create a 3-year goal plan where we're able to spread it out and make it manageable. So it's very difficult for me to say that looking at this, that, and it is very incredibly ambitious for 1 year, that, and we're not going to even approve it tonight, I don't think, right? Because we're asking him to make edits.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, I don't know. I think we're setting us up, all of us up, for an impossible task.
I just want to clarify one thing. I don't want to communicate I hear what you're saying, but I want to be really clear to the community that nothing fell on the side last year, that our administrators work, I wouldn't say double time, I would say quadruple time. And so they make sure that they get everything done, often to their own personal sacrifice. So I just want to make that point. And I know that's not what you were saying, but I want to make sure I clarify.
But that's what I mean. We're building it up with so much to accomplish in 1 year. It's difficult. It's because the team is so conscientious that we get that. But I feel like it's unfair to give so much in 1 year, and we not only edit the AP and IB, but now a mid-year report as well. Like, these things are very time consuming to accomplish.
I think, and I'll go to you, Dave, in a second, but I do think we're unanimous in that everyone thinks it's overachieving.
I was going to say too, it's so Carol and Jamie and I sat for a few hours and synthesized this together, and I think we had a sense of that too, that this is like draft one. But I do think, like, some of the things like Trustee Cashman was saying about, like, the more conceptual versus like the actions, like, that could help to maybe making these things a little more broad. Several of you said that might help and maybe accomplish kind of what Trustee Svensson is saying too. So we'll look to edit with that concept in mind.
David?
Just thinking that I remember watching during the Olympics, and they showed like what it took to get a gold medal in 1968, and versus Simone Biles. And like, she's in the air. I mean, it's a totally different world. But every year, as they go slightly higher, they add one more flip, one more twist. It becomes more. And there's no question that I'm going to say central office has spoiled us to some degree with what you've been able to accomplish, the detail of your presentations, the thoroughness of them. I mean, I don't want to harp on one, but certainly the world languages presentation that Dr. Smythe put together a few years ago was like a PhD. I mean, you spit out PhDs like it's nothing, but yeah.
Oh, I just want to say Ms. Aguiar.
Well, both of you worked in that together.
You did have like daily planning sessions there.
It was a huge amount of work and hugely valuable. And I remember thinking to I'm not going to compare it to anyone else in any other environment because we're on the mic here, but man, we really do things so well here. The bar is so high that vis-a-vis what Trustee Svensson is saying, I think it is worth us putting the mirror back on ourselves and asking, is that necessary? Does it need to be slightly higher
Every time.
every time? Does Simone Biles have to go around the moon next time? Where does it go?
But we love that about you.
We
love it about you.
Yes. And I think it's to our credit, but I think it's also can be, we want to make sure that we don't do too much. I brought up the AP-IB thing, but there were a couple of comments I had that I didn't get a chance to say that I wanted to mention. I think might actually dovetail with this. And they're small. The first is on goal 2, I didn't have a chance to mention how critical this is and how well you captured it in this wording. The only thing I didn't see, which I think might actually fit better in goal 3, is informing the community of these pending issues, which I know is embedded within that, but letting folks know that we are thinking about this proactively and that this potentially can come. So when it hits, people aren't like, whoa, where'd this cliff, if it hits, where'd this cliff come from? But it's in part of an ongoing dialogue. And I think the way that may dovetail is if we, I couldn't tell when I was in planning this whether that was more appropriate to mention in part of goal 2 or whether it made sense as part of goal 3, community engagement. But I do think that, look, I'm looking at these things in goal 3 and they are all laudable and I agree with every single one of them. But I also agree with what Trustee Cashman said, which is if we keep it more general, we know one of the things I'm getting from here is we want to engage our students specifically more in a way. We want to engage our employees or in-school constituencies in a more proactive way. Those are the things that I think are critical to that goal. How, if it's a town hall or if it's a survey or if it's a barbecue, whatever we do, a dance, however we achieve it, I think that can give you some latitude to make sure it's done in a way that potentially fits with the other things that you're doing, because you're doing so much. The parent universities, the improved work on school committees. We just got an email. I didn't have a chance to read it because we got it just before heading to this meeting. But on shared decision making, there's so much we do, and I think some of the language in goal 3 can create more work and also be restrictive at the same time. Creating structures for students to share their perspectives. I think we might want to enhance them. We've seen this, right here, and we have, literally, I don't want to keep bringing back to school night, but, one teacher said, I want kids to email me. I want kids to call me. Her only request was, please not after 9 p.m. She got one at 12:45 in the morning and then talked to the kids. And then the next day she got one at 11 o'clock at night. And she's like, guys, but the idea that they're doing that, giving their phones out to kids, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. That's up to you guys to decide what the protocols are. But there are lots of avenues for our kids to be engaged in our education. But improving our engagement is a general one that could work. So I think the takeaway, as Dr. McCary very well said, is let's not bite off too much. Let's look at this. Let's distill what's been said, and then maybe come back with something that might be more, I don't want to say less achievable, because we all know you can jump as high as Simone Biles in the world of education. A little bit. I'm not saying you're good. I'm not putting you out on the mat, Chris, but in terms of the analogy, it works. You do achieve tremendously high marks, and this is to some degree for the first year, and I think it's worth saying, in a very long time, we do not have new leadership in central office. We do not have a pandemic. We do not have $39 million of our funding being taken away from us. We have challenges ahead. We have challenges every day. But it is a bit of a time to be able to breathe. And I think what we're all saying in different ways, in different topics, is reflect on some of the things that were done and think about how we can make what I think we all agree is a very highly successful, very highly functioning organization, and continue to tune it up.
Thank you. All right, I think we can move on from here. No, no, you can.
I agree with so much of what Trustee Svensson said, and I appreciate your comments and particularly, offering a unique perspective. But I want to strenuously disagree that the financial constraints, whether they're in the future or current, are more important than the education. I respect, that is a very big issue. And I think that was your point, is that it's something that we really want to prioritize. But I don't think this central team or any teachers in the building or any time this board ever thought that education would be compromised. We will do the best regardless of the financial constraints that we have. I don't know how to say it any better than that, but number one, they're kids, they come to school, they're going to get the best education at North Shore, regardless of how much money we have to spend on it.
All right, thank you. All right, now we get to move on to another discussion item, the Legislative Action Committee's yearly goal.
I'm sorry.
Really?
Board topics was not part of it?
Oh, okay. I
Sorry.
thought we kind of did it all together, but all right, let's look at the board topics. Who would like to add something? Yes.
Can I make just one prefacing comment
Yeah.
here? Ms. Campy saved me again today. We realized that
Oh,
the
right.
budget adoption, which we tried to pair with the BOCES vote,
Yeah.
is actually a day too late. We need to adopt the budget at the latest by April 22nd.
Okay.
Now, I can communicate with the board on this and see if everybody's available. Our initial thinking was so we had a full meeting. You know, the BOCES vote is like a 5-minute vote, and we tried to put it all together. Our thinking was, could we move? So that's a Wednesday because you have to do the BOCES vote on the day that BOCES says. Could we do a full meeting on the Tuesday, the 22nd, with the budget adoption? Do a 5-minute meeting on Wednesday morning for the BOCES budget where we don't have to do a full board meeting. So that was one thinking. There are other options if that doesn't work. But I just want to put that out there.
23rd, that was a Tuesday or that was a Wednesday?
April 22nd is a Tuesday, April
Okay.
23rd is a Wednesday.
That's right.
Okay.
All right. So you want to? All right.
Sure,
so we're
it's
going
fine.
back to the 2 meetings. Okay.
Once you get to that part of my calendar, it basically is like Board of Ed, Board of Ed, Board of Ed, Board of Ed.
Yeah,
So
me too.
All right. Whatever we have to do. All right. Any other comments about the meetings? Yes.
I'm going to just respond to Chris's comment and say, I was thinking earlier with the district safety plan, gosh, that Betty Campy is on it with the noticing and when you have to do, I mean, she is even discussing this, that she caught that right now is worth mentioning again. Board meeting topics incredibly quickly. I'd like to see LAC report to the board and community. We have such a highly functioning committee this year and last year, but it's really taken it up a notch. I'd like to hear from them. I would like to, when we have the elementary literacy and civil discourse conversation, see if we can include some of the higher level civil discourse conversation as part of that topic. And that will be it for me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Definitely want to second the LAC report. I think,
Okay.
you know, having probably our chairperson at least come and represent would be great. Yeah. And not, you know, not every month, but once or
Sure.
twice. Yeah.
At least once a year.
Okay. Anybody else?
We not want a calendar when reports are for committee reports. I feel like sometimes I'm sort of surprised by them. Like, oh, I don't know.
That's an excellent point.
Idea.
I didn't list student recognition or committee reports, which I think we try to alternate. So I'll take any notes on thoughts that trustees have on that.
Okay. All right. Can we move on? All right. We will move on to our LAC goals. Now, every year, the board sets goals for LAC. That's sort of LAC is tasked with filling the board's priorities to the best of their abilities. So I will open up the floor for any suggestions for this year. And of course, Maria and Dave and Jim, you're welcome to participate.
Well, I thought I might, since now we're in public session too, we have had some discussions with the LAC committee. I'll try to summarize what we've talked about with, you know, what I think LAC thinks that it should be doing based on the goals we gave it last year and where the committee is with that. So many of the things that LAC has undertaken are these sort of, you know, dovetail with all these huge kind of more than a few months long projects. So they have moved forward, made some progress with, we had tasked them with really acting on some of the things we heard at last year's legislative breakfast, and gathering more information from National Grid and LIPA. And now there's the new Propel and Jupiter projects to add to the list. But this is this information gathering that they're doing, which is quite time consuming in terms of setting up meetings and prepping for them. And we're getting to the point now where these meetings are just about to happen, and is particularly with National Grid and LIPA. So I definitely hope we can, you know, we should continue to bless that, you know, as a high priority for them. I think probably it goes without saying, but it must be said. They also, though there is currently the town of Oyster Bay has their moratorium on battery storage. The committee is trying still to pursue that information gathering. It is hearing from different groups and would like to be able to invite others to come speak to present. And I think that is something we must support. They do want to hold, have another breakfast and at least think about, we didn't, for various reasons, we didn't have a legislative night this past year again. And I think we need to think about whether we do that or it takes a different form in order to be engaging the community further with LAC. But I think that is, again, sort of going along with the breakfast, considering what kind of events the committee itself should actually be promoting and sponsoring. The high school, believe it's the high school PTO, actually made a request to LAC to gather information and present it to the board about traffic safety between the high school and the middle school. That's definitely something for us to consider. And it's also, there's nothing more to say on that one. I think it's important. I do support it. Foundation aid, which Dr. Z and Mr. Pappas and all the team have been working on already very hard, as there is a current effort going on through the Rockefeller Institute to accept input and reconsider the formula. The public comment period has closed, but that is something that we have contemplated in LAC. The committee has considered, maybe even though the period recently closed, we should still get our voice heard. So the committee would like to continue and quickly try to pull something together on that. The summer really made it complicated for them to do anything sooner. And given what we've been hearing about the Propel and Jupiter projects, and certainly what we have already learned about, I'm not quite sure where the Engineers Club development stands, but all these various projects that are coming in using land in our district and potentially getting tax breaks on it is something LAC is always monitoring it, but it's quite a challenge to stay abreast of. They want to continue to do that. That reaching out to the IDA, trying to be more proactive in terms of being able to find out when there are issues that affect our district. So those are a little bit of a mix and match of things that they've been doing, that they want to continue doing, and some of the new stuff that's coming up.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I think Maria did a really good job of that. The only thing I would say is if we're looking for direction now, which we're doing publicly here, I do think that in terms of the legislative night, I think this town is mobilizing in many ways with our legislators, and we've had successful lobbying with our legislators as well. So I would argue that a legislative breakfast for us to directly communicate our concerns is still worthwhile. And I think that it would also be worthwhile to potentially expand that. One of the things we had talked about was potentially having some of our parent communities within the schools participate in a breakfast to be able to meet some of our legislators and understand what we're doing here about some of the issues, and bring people who give so much to those organizations and care so much about our schools, but maybe don't see that aspect of it. Certainly, organizing the various events for students at the various schools is critical. I mean, homecoming is, what they do is it's amazing. But the legislator side, the issue side, I think that could be a way to kind of bridge that gap and help accomplish some things we mentioned in Goal 3 from big picture without having to mention them. The other thing I think they had mentioned as a small goal, but I think we may want to think about this is, we've never really had a relationship with our regent, Roger Tillis. I think that might be something that, as a relationship, we want to try to have LAC build, have him understand a little bit more about what we're going through, and also what we accomplish here and what is different from other places within that. That he's been in that position for a long time, and I'd like to be on his radar.
Other questions, comments? No, I say the same thing every year. There is education legislation that I think is important to sometimes advocate and lobby for. I mean, we never do it, but it's because we have these other pressing priorities. But I would like to sort of keep that in mind. You know, there are big changes coming to the regents and graduation requirements and alternative pathways and all these things.
So this would be, and I am sorry, you correctly remind me
Yeah.
that you have said it every year.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I only now am remembering
Yeah.
that. So I want to make sure I understand though, those are good examples. What specifically can LAC do? Are you suggesting this is really familiarize themselves with the proposed legislation where it hasn't already, or any legislation that has in fact recently passed, and simply bring
You know what it
education
is?
to us?
I would love for us to just keep it in mind that LAC is set out to do that as well.
Mhm.
And so maybe we
Absolutely.
just keep it on our radar that if there are things that come up
Mhm.
where we can participate, like these, they were looking for public comments at one point on, you know, the alternative pathways and the changes in the regions. I added mine, right? But I just added it as a person.
Mhm.
That would have been maybe a good thing that I could have suggested to LAC to do. So I just say it publicly so we keep it in mind. Anything else?
The only other thing is unfunded mandates, but I mean, I'm there's the list is
No.
there's such an important list here that I would say I'll bring it up next year.
Lisa, I actually, you had sent us an email, and I actually printed out that list of NISBA resolutions. Is that something I wonder that could be? I guess it isn't really a LAC thing, no. It really is for us.
That's
It's
us.
really
For
for
us,
us to
yeah.
review. Sorry. Yeah.
I would add one other thing. You know, at one
I
point,
did intend to review it and get back to you.
at one point there,
Too late. Okay.
she'll be up all night. All right.
I will not be up all night.
At one point there was a super LAC, and as we're looking at Jupiter and Propel, right? Propel in particular is going to involve lots of different communities. It might be interesting to reinvigorate super LAC. All right, we're good.
Anything else? So barring, nobody said
We
no,
got a
don't
lot
do
of stuff
anything that
there.
I listed. Okay.
I mean, I would just say the traffic stuff, we
Yeah.
do have the safety committee, and a lot of that goes through the safety committee. So
I wondered about that too. I
Yeah.
just, it's also not, specifically legislatively, although it is certainly something we could bring up at the breakfast. Sorry, Dave.
I was just going to say that I think if we think about it slightly bigger, which is sort of the issues facing the Glen Cove Avenue corridor, which go from the decrepit fence that they keep, I say half-assedly repairing here, sorry, to the traffic and to the entryway, to the sidewalk we've been trying to get from the Victorian House down to the Four Corners. I think that could potentially be an area that we could liaise with the civics, and there is a legislative element. We do need assistance from the Nassau County legislature for that road, and it's been an ongoing project. So I'm not sure that's a priority for the whole group, but that's at least a way that I could see it coming together and fitting, ticking a lot of the boxes. Andrea is obviously right. The educational policy in a more quaint time was something that LAC spent a lot of their time on: gap elimination, APPR, et cetera. And now it's been a lot of financial issues. But I think that along with the educational issues are the funding issues, the legislative issues, and the role as liaison with the community. And so there's a lot of those boxes that are ticked. Sorry, I want to make sure Chris sort of has like, you think we gave direction here on this, or is it all over, or is it like a buckshot?
Oh no, I was just going to say with that one, I really agree. Like with the health and safety committee, they might be able to like formulate the asks of Delia and some of our county legislatures.
So if they can sort of do the quote unquote work, and then through the board eventually have that translate to the legislative action committee, which may have the connections, the ability to try to poke it.
I just, in my years on the safety committee, we've always talked about the sidewalk. That's the classic example.
Yep.
And we've always said, okay, we got to get the legislature involved. And then for whatever reason, sure, part of that's my fault too. But I think LAC then is that missing piece of where it went with that conversation and others.
Not necessarily the next piece is am I hearing? This is something we could actually kind of refer over to the Health and Safety Committee first.
Maybe. Yeah, exactly.
Starts at health and
Right, that's what I'm
safety, and then it goes
asking.
to
Right.
legislative
here's-
action.
Right.
if
Almost
he's-
like here are the asks for
Yeah.
the legislators, and can you help us
Right.
get that?
Okay, all right, great. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to express my own support for the idea of a legislative event. I don't think
Yeah.
that there's anything second to being in the room with people face to face interfacing. And I was on LAC for a little while, and I had the opportunity to put together one event. I think that I would encourage an invitation list that's a little broader than we've had in the past, and up the ballot, down the ballot, on both sides of the aisle, really everybody who's a decision maker that touches this district. And our district is broad. And in particular, Town of Oyster Bay officials and people that, we maybe haven't had interfaces with in the past. I wanted to kind of underline that. I think it could be really useful.
But you yourself, actually, thank you for bringing that up. And I sort of want to push back just a little to
Yeah.
get your ideas. You remember the effort that it takes just simply to do the logistical coordination. If we're now talking about sort of doubling the number of legislators, or of every stripe, mayors of the towns, town officials, whatever, it becomes something I think is beyond the purview of the individuals that are on LAC. I don't think we have the structure to put together. We're not really built for events like that. How do we do that?
I would respectfully disagree. I didn't find it particularly
You are an
were pretty
expert at that,
successful.
Lisa.
No, I think we have to stay away from April.
Mhm.
It has to, anything that is in budget season is going to be hairy and challenging. So your runway is short. You either have to get into this winter, and we have to have a couple of dates, and their secretaries are used to scheduling appearances. I mean, it's an election season, so it's a little tricky who's going to be the people in some roles, but some roles are not up for re-election. So you have to invite everybody and just see how it falls. But we can talk offline about the specific logistics. But we had a pretty good attendance for that event, and yeah.
All right, I'm going to move on. I'd like to open up the floor for public comments. Anybody would like to come down, name and town of residence? We might have some ghosts here tonight.
Who would know?
No, all right. I will close comments from the public. And now I'm going to do something wild. It's going to be wild. You ready? Action 12, A through J, which is the personnel. Action 13, which is our community ed instructors. Action 14, which is the appointment of the Board of Registration. Action 15, which is the acceptance of donations. Action 16, A through B, which are our change orders. Action 17A, which is our intermunicipal agreement. And Action 18A through C, which is the approval of contracts. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, Maria. Second. Questions, comments?
Is this necessary it's not necessary, but I think it's an opportunity to thank all the organizations for pitching in for what's going to be an awesome homecoming on the 21st. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
Come,
That's what I was just
come
looking.
hungry, people.
Bought some new merch.
So that's every single parent organization that has ponied up a really nice amount of money to contribute. Thank you.
And special thanks to Rachel Bowen, who apparently single-handedly puts this on.
It's amazing. And she plans everything, the whole event, coordinates for the clinics. She's superstar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And for the record, in case anyone doesn't know, she's not an employee of the district. She's a parent.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Anything else? All in favor? Okay, excellent. Action 19, the approval of the SPED contract between North Shore and Locust Valley. Action 20, the approval of a SPED tuition agreement with East Meadow. Action 21, the approval of our IEPs. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay, second, all right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Did you say SPED? Is this a new
SPED.
acronym? Special education?
I was trained on SPED. I don't hear anybody here ever
I have
use
never
it,
heard
but
it used here. I just had
Yeah.
to call it out since
Does-
we live in the land of acronyms.
Nobody
so-
here uses it, right? Yeah, I've never heard anyone here use it.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted.
Any questions or comments? Nope. Okay, all in favor? Okay, excellent. Now we're going to move to unfinished business. Anybody have anything? Oh, wow, that was going to be a fight.
I have a quickie thing, which is tomorrow is construction steering in the morning, and I would really love to be next week. Sorry, next week.
Goodness, thank you. Thank
Next
you.
week, my bad. Sorry.
Tomorrow's Friday. Day after board meeting
I'm living in the
is a
future.
non-board day for.
I'm living in the future. Pardon my misspeaking. Thank you for the correction. It's next week. I got the reminder today, so it's top of mind. I would really love to be able to attend that meeting with the support of the board, that the sign that is currently the North Shore High School wooden sign. I don't know if you all remember Dave, you weren't with us when we were in the bus.
Oh,
We
yeah.
were sort of testing out a new spot for that, which is an obstruction, both when you're trying to turn and seeing kids and like trying to assess the situation, but also an obstruction when you're trying to see the new digital sign. So they came up with a new spot that is sort of paired very well with the middle school sign, and with the, of course, approval of other building leaders and everybody involved. Does the board agree that that is a good new spot?
I don't agree tonight because honestly, when we did that, I was not in a good position in the bus, and I think the prototype is down. Is that right? It's not possible to see it anymore. It was up so
for
briefly.
weeks.
Yeah.
We'll trust you to
in
make
the summer,
the decision for me.
in the summer when it was not really, easy to go by and notice. And I found out about it the day of the tour. So,
Where is it? Where are you talking about?
It is no longer there. It was across the street from where the middle school sign is, just sort of near the Victorian house on that side, but in a little bit, like off the street. So it's a little bit further in to the grounds.
My only point about the sign is that I don't want to move it twice. That's just not a responsible use of taxpayer money. Dig a hole, put it in, dig another hole, put it in again. So if we're set that that's going to be its permanent home, I'm fine with that. But until we are, I don't want to,
we're talking, yeah, I mean, honestly, I still have questions. So I don't know if this is the time to ask them, but here's what I'd love to know. And I apologize if this has been discussed and I'm not remembering. So it's the sign that is in the middle. It's in the median, in the middle. It is. We're just proposing moving that sign, not buying a whole new sign. It's the existing sign, okay, that would move. So it would have a less visible presence now, and giving basically the electronic sign the primary announcement of our property, of our school, right? And you're saying because it obstructs the electronic sign somewhat. Okay.
And for both the electronic sign, but visibility is debatable. It's still going to be in front of the schools. It's just not going to be in the median. And so, yes, it is an obstruction when you're sitting. The safest time to observe the sign is when you're sort of sitting in traffic. And if you're one car back, it's sort of right in the center of the visual of that electric
Cars facing north
exactly,
stopped at the sign.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in addition, now that I'm spending more time in the high school, if you're seated and you're ready to make a turn, there are kids crossing in every direction. And if they're crossing, you cannot see anybody who's coming. It just obstructs the view of
On the left.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've never seen somebody cross there, but
they're moving.
I thought they usually go in and cross over.
I brought this up at safety committee
Remember.
about 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I've brought it up each year
Yeah, I
Bringing it
remember
up
it.
here too.
because it is a big problem.
And
The
have we considered, I'm sorry, please go ahead, Rich, I
position of the
apologize.
sign right now really hinders the ability of somebody driving to see, if you're leaving the high school, to see students, cars, cyclists heading north. And as you all know, people tend to be looking at their phones instead of watching where they're walking. And it's a problem. So I've brought it up for quite a few years, and I was so thrilled when I heard that this was going to be proposed because it accomplishes two things. So I'm 100% in favor of it.
So one more question, have we considered one other, and I know people who need to be aren't here to talk about it, but have we considered simply moving it back a little bit? And why would that not be acceptable? So it stays in that center median, but it is moved out of the way, so it's not blocking anything.
Construction and steering went through a whole process where there was photos, there was a vote, several locations were considered.
In
and-
construction steering.
Yes.
But now you're asking us to make a decision without having gone through that
I mean, do we
process.
need to make a decision? Isn't this something that construction steering does? Like, I don't want to micromanage where a sign goes.
I would say that generally bringing up something in old business is probably not a time to make a decision about it. But I think for old business to say that we've been talking about the sign for a long time and it's time for construction steering to give a firm recommendation to the board seems more than fair. Right?
Can you crystallize what is the process for moving the sign? Because I'm so tired of talking about the sign.
I know. It's not even that late. I'm like, oh.
Well, maybe you guys talk about that in
It
construction
sounds like a
steering.
construction. So let's try to bring it to a conclusion in construction steering, which is not tomorrow.
It's not tomorrow. It's Tuesday.
Right.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next steps would be at our next meeting, sharing the opinion of construction steering and a recommendation from construction steering. Is that correct?
That in our updates, either Jamie or I.
Okay, excellent.
I have some unfinished business.
Yes, go
I
ahead.
think I'm always confused whether it's unfinished. So I did send to the board the NISBA proposed resolutions and asked for some updates. I didn't get very many, but thank you, Lisa Catherine. So I think it's fine. I think this is something that I mentioned it last year because I went to that meeting, which was like so long, and it was my first time going. And I think we really have to kind of prepare a couple of months in advance, and I'll try to be better about getting it out to everyone earlier. When NISBA sends it, I think that we should consider our wants and our needs and try to get something in front of them that could help us. And Lisa suggested it, and I had the same thought last year that can help with our LIPA issues and see if there are other districts who are going through the same thing who would want to join us in a resolution. So I'm saying it now so that hopefully we'll remember. And so I'm not going to submit any amendments, and I think that they do a great job. You can look through it and see what you think. I mean, I think it's really well done.
If
and
it's
there's-
due tomorrow and I sent you comments first thing in the morning, would it not
Yeah.
be possible still to consider?
Well, but we'd all have to agree.
Right.
It can't just come from one.
Okay.
So we would have had to agree at this meeting on.
So,
any-
and at least whatever comment Lisa made, we shouldn't agree on?
There was no comment. She just read it.
Okay,
and,
okay.
Gave some
there
feedback.
There were a couple of them that were supported by the committee that I was encouraged by, and then the idea that we would for future submit comments for ourselves that school districts should have some state protection from big changes in utilities, and that there are other districts who might write that proposal with us.
Yeah.
I will add one thing, another sort of unfinished business. Lisa's also going to send you all the board self-eval.
I have that under new business.
All right, well, I think we mentioned it one time before, but okay.
So I have just not completed. I have a Survey Monkey. It's almost done. So I'm going to send it to you guys tomorrow so you can complete the board self-evaluation before a retreat. And then I thought we could discuss it when we, for like the first half hour of the retreat. So I'll get that out to you.
Other unfinished business?
I don't have any unfinished business other than to say, as a former president of this board, I find that following the process is so important, and Andrea, you're doing a fantastic job in every way. And
It's like a butt's coming.
No, there's no butt coming.
Okay,
There's no butt coming. The only thing I have coming is a
Yeah.
thank you, which is that
thanks.
except it's not to you. That was my only thank you to you. But it's the central office, which is that I had mentioned 3 things in unfinished business, and they were all addressed. They're not necessarily finished because they're big things, but I really appreciate that, in following the process of raising those things in unfinished business publicly, you took note and you followed them, and you paid them some heed, which I really appreciate. I know there's one other I had asked for in new business, which is about the way that new development in Glen Harbor got funded, but that's a big project. I'm sure.
Mr. Pappas is working on that.
So
yes,
this was
and-
just a recognition that
Yeah.
that unfinished business is an important part of this. It's the way to properly raise issues like the sign and making sure we move it to closure, or that NISPA list of actions that Lisa was incredibly diligent about staying up until like 1:00 in the morning last year. And I really appreciate that we're following that and acting on it in the way that a good board should, publicly and effectively. Thank you, everyone.
We're the best out there. We're a model. All right. Any other unfinished business?
We're humble.
You got more?
I have new business.
All right. Let's slow you down. I got one too. New business. I'd like to raise the idea of an alumni coordinator that is a stipend position. Because I think the task of alumni coordinator and developing a network and all that could be can't fall on you guys. I think there's a benefit maybe to having an alumni in the position. I think that is the way to go. So I don't know if that could be something you research or consider. I have some ideas of who that could be. And the other thing I wanted to do, we're in new business, yeah. Last night at back to school night, they were using translation services. I just want to say how impressed I was by that. If English wasn't your first language, whatever language it was, you could use your phone and it was automatically translating what Dr. and Mr. Contreras was saying through an app called Wordly, and people had ear pods in with it. I mean, I was like, it really touched me. I was really, really happy, and I want to thank everyone. There's been a real concerted effort to bring in our English language learners and their families. So thank you for that. Other new business.
I miss where we went to new business from old business, and I think Dr. Z had asked the board to consider something that would be considered old business with respect to he's looking for feedback with DHC.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't
No.
raise my hand on that one. We had discussed monthly reports from DHC. I think that was in one of our summer meetings, and just in reaching out to them, and we're going to have our annual funding call with them where we talk about basically what we're going to be asking for, how we're going to do it from our state leaders. But one of the partners suggested that they come and meet with us. So I thought that might be effective just because it's an opportunity for the board to ask questions, to get, in-person insight, and then also to ask, to express what you are looking for in terms of ongoing updates. So I just wanted to suggest that maybe as a first step, and then we could take it from there in terms of the regular updates if we wanted to continue to do those in person, or if they were written, what were you looking for exactly?
Support.
I'll work with board leadership, and my updates will look at dates for times when we have meetings scheduled before.
Anything else?
Going back to new business.
Whatever.
So you brought this up, Dr. Z, in your superintendent's report, and it's the refs issue. I was just thinking about, that this issue that we're having with getting refs for sports teams, and as a parent of a new 7th grade athlete, and I'll bring this up in athletic advisory too, I just think it would be great to have the whole department, all the coaches, have some kind of uniform communication to the parents. I think that you fill out that whole arbiter sports thing, and there's great information embedded in there, and you're supposed to click on all of these attachments and sign off on them. And I love reading all that stuff, but I'm sure most people don't. And I think that just some kind of informational email from the coach to the parents about, even our sports conduct, our parenting sports conduct form in the parent handbook is amazing. It's great. I think just even sending out those bullets separately to parents so they know what to expect at games, and maybe even more specifics. I guess each sport has probably a different set of rules. So I think that would be really helpful. I'll bring it up in athletic advisory again, but I just think some uniform communication would be wonderful and maybe helpful. I mean, this refs issue sounds like it's a Long Island wide or maybe a countrywide issue, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I do think it's definitely island-wide, and it's definitely across the county. But I just wanted to mention, I do think, because sometimes I think coaches might feel like they need to text, and this is not North Shore, this is across Long Island. They don't know how to. So Mr. Lang and I have started talking about purchasing, or at least costing out a Team Snap app or something like that, maybe lower cost than that one, that would be uniform. And then the other thing that's happening, I think, as a game changes, the refs show up, the two teams are there, and the ref might say, let's start at 5 instead of 5:30.
Yeah.
The parents get there, and the game is in the fourth quarter or near the end. It's why did I leave the city to see 10 minutes of the game?
Yeah.
That is something that happens, whereas maybe they could snap out a message that just automatically goes even to the cell phone. Just a heads up, we're starting early. Just a heads up, the game was moved here. So I think that's a great discussion we have our Monday, the first meeting of athletic advisories.
And I just came up with an idea. You could bring it to Boosters Club or to athletic advisory. It is interesting. It would be interesting whether it's through a video or through a forum where you have the student perspective about how they want spectators to be. I do think sometimes the parents intend, they have one intention, but the students receive it a second way. And that might be a different angle for how to change behavior.
Yeah, there's a real overlap, obviously, between a ref shortage and parent behavior in the sidelines. There was an article in Newsday about it recently, and we all know it.
One other thing I just want to say, there was a language exempt trip to Italy proposed. And I just want to say how I know it's not running because we didn't have enough students, but I hope that maybe in the future we can keep brainstorming ways to do this. I was so impressed when I saw
What does that mean?
that.
When was it proposed? Sorry.
I guess it was recently it was proposed. Yeah.
Here? You mean
No,
to the
no.
board? I'm sorry.
To students. There's a trip to Italy
Yeah.
that's offered to students who are language exempt.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't take a language, typically you would not be able to attend one of our foreign language
I
trips.
gotcha. Okay.
This was a way to give access to those students who have IEPs with an exemption.
And it was proposed in some forum that
It was offered, but they needed 5 families.
it was actually offered.
5
Okay,
kids.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Trying to
a trip
understand.
proposal that the board had already seen last year, and
Okay.
we, Ms. Aguirre-Mady, Mr. Contreras, they decided to open it up to try and include students who don't have that opportunity in their language.
Okay, gotcha.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. I will now adjourn the meeting. Everybody go off, do good work, whichever way you're going to do tomorrow.
Chris, you know how you're gonna come?
Dave is supposed to, yeah, I think Dave is. Thank you.